Welcome to the Mom Self-Care Podcast, your safe space to finally focus on YOU. I'm Chari Twitty-Hawkins, your self-care coach for moms, praying wife, and mom of four. And I know that being a Christ-centered mom is such a beautiful calling, but it can be so draining. That's why it's important to make sure you are filling your own cup. On this podcast, we'll discuss practical, holistic self-care strategies to help nurture your mind, body, and spirit. Because a mama who fills her own cup pours that back into her family with true peace and joy. Tune in for honest conversations about motherhood and self-care because you matter too. Blessings and welcome to episode 5 of the Mom Self-Care Podcast. I am Chari Twitty-Hawkins, your host and self-care coach for moms. And today I'm going to talk about the importance of setting boundaries because they are so important when it comes to practicing self-care. A lot of moms, they either don't practice self-care or they're not consistent because they don't set healthy boundaries. There was a time I think about when we lived in another house in my studio, what I called my studio, because at the time I was making inspirational jewelry, but I did not have a door. You know how some of you guys may know when you work at home, it's awesome to have a closed area, an office to work in. Unfortunately, I didn't have that. So my son would come up to the door area where the door is supposed to be. Mommy, can you Mommy, can you and whatever it is he wanted. Mommy, can you do this? Mommy, can we say prayers? Mommy, can you look? Mommy, probably telling on brother or sister. Mommy, she did this. Mommy, she did that. And I had to intentionally and consistently tell him, Mommy's working right now. Guess what? He's 10 and I still have to remind him, Mommy's working right now. My twins are 14 and I still have to remind them, Mommy's working right now. So it's very important to set boundaries. And if I didn't do that, I would be consistently, they're already distracting me, number one. But if I were to give into their demands and whatever it is they wanted at the time, then I would be consistently distracted and not getting absolutely any work done because I'm going to see about them. Can you relate to that? You're not getting things done. You're not practicing self-care. You're not doing the things that you need to do because you're consistently seeing about your children or your husband or your spouse or whomever. You're consistently seeing about other people, so you're neglecting yourself. And that's why setting boundaries is so important. And what are boundaries? Boundaries are guidelines or limits that show others what is acceptable behavior. So what is it that you are allowed to do? What is it that I'm allowed to do? And I'm often going to continue to say boundaries with ourselves as well as others, because when people talk about boundaries, they often talk about, okay, I'm not going to let this person do this, this, and this. But also, what boundaries are you going to set with yourself? What are you going to say, I'm not going to do anymore? I'm not going to accept. Those are the things you have to think about when it comes to setting boundaries. And a lot of moms don't set boundaries because, number one, they don't even know what they want. So how can you hit a target if you don't know what the goal is? So if you want to save more money, or you want a closer relationship with your children, or you want to spend more time doing your work uninterrupted, these are things you really have to think about. Like, what do I want as far as setting boundaries is concerned? What is it I want to achieve in my life that the lack of setting boundaries is not allowing me to do? Other reasons moms don't set boundaries, they don't want to feel like, oh, I'm being mean. They don't want to feel like I'm neglecting. We talked about neglecting in the last episode. I don't want to feel like I'm neglecting my children. I don't want to feel like I'm letting them down. And I don't want to seem selfish. But guess what? Boundaries are there to protect your mental health. As I talked about, they're there to show others how to treat you, how you want to be treated. That protects your mental health, so you're not being mean. So it's the opposite. When you set healthy boundaries, you're doing it, hopefully, with love. I have a course and I named it that, Boundary Setting with Love, because we need to shift the mindset of setting boundaries is mean. No, setting boundaries is healthy. It's necessary for healthy relationships. And when you don't set healthy boundaries, it can lead to, some of y'all know what I'm talking about, overwhelm, mom burnout, even resentment towards your children and towards yourself. where you're like, I can't believe I keep doing this. I can't believe I keep letting people take advantage of me. Or, and you may never say it out loud, as I said, resentment towards your children, where I'm like, oh, they're always calling me. They're always saying, Mommy, I need you. Mommy, I want you. And you're like, oh, stop calling me. Stop saying my name. When, our names aren't mommy, mom, and then some nowadays, bruh. But you start to have that feeling of like, oh my goodness, can y'all stop calling me? I need some time. So that's what happens when you don't. Again, those are just some of the things. Those are just some of the things that happen when you don't practice consistently enforcing healthy boundaries in your life. Now, when you do practice healthy boundaries, you're going to create healthy relationships. You're going to create space for self-respect, for other people as well as yourself to respect your wants, your needs. You're going to create space for that by showing them how to treat you. You show them that this is what respect means for me. And then you create space for self-care. So if there's something that you know you need to be consistently doing as it relates to your self-care, then when you set these healthy boundaries, you're saying every Friday, mommy's going to go do this. Every morning for 5 minutes, mommy needs her time for her coffee or her tea. Do not interrupt me. And if you come to interrupt me, I'm going to redirect you and let you know that this is what? Mommy's time, mommy's 5 minutes, or mommy's time to go walk, or mommy's time to pray, or whatever that is for you. So it creates space for self-care. And when you think about boundaries, there's different types of boundaries. There's physical boundaries, emotional, time. And then you think about, who do you want to set those boundaries with? What family members, friends, co-workers, even your boss? Who or what? Even your finances. What boundaries do you need to set in your life? So that's something when you start to think about boundaries. Ask yourself, where do I need to set boundaries in my life? Are people asking me to watch their kids all the time? And I'm already worn out with my own kids. So who is asking you to watch their children? Who is that person? Or is your boss consistently asking you to work extra hours? Or are you as an entrepreneur working well over what you know is healthy for your mental health and for your family? So think about and write down where you need to start setting boundaries in your life. And remember, setting boundaries with the love, because boundaries are not mean. Boundaries are not selfish. Yes, you're thinking about yourself, but you're also thinking about the person you're communicating with. And then after you've identified those people in those areas, then you want to create a plan for communicating clearly the boundaries that you're going to set. And I said clearly, meaning be specific. I will not work past this time. Mommy will play with you for 30 minutes. After that, I have to go cook, or I have to go work, or whatever it is you have to do. Or maybe telling your husband, I need some quality time. I talked about in a previous episode about the 5 love languages and how if I don't get my quality time, I start feeling some kind of way. My attitude starts changing. And so we've had that discussion. We recently actually had an updated discussion because your needs will change. I talked about how I like doing our weekly dates, but that I feel like either daily or every other day, we need to be doing a check-in just to see how we are and where we are mentally as not just husband and wife, but father, mother, business owner, employee, like with everything in the world going on. We need to be able to check in with each other. And that was me setting a boundary, me saying, I need more from you. That's what I need for us to have a healthy relationship as husband and wife. So again, being specific and being honest. So sometimes maybe you're listening and you say, well, I already said that. I already told them that. Well, sometimes it helps to tell them how it makes you feel or how you feel when your boundaries are crossed, when they're calling you all the time. Mommy, I need this. Mommy, I need that. How that makes you feel. You feel overwhelmed. You feel frustrated. You feel angry. You feel like you're not your best self. Sometimes that helps them to understand. And they're like, oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. For instance, my husband, and this was a few years back, I was so overwhelmed, y'all, with just everything, taking care of the house as a stay-at-home mom. And I had to sit down and tell my husband, I said, I'm overwhelmed and I feel like I'm doing so much. And it seems like, and I didn't say it's that way because he did help, but I said, it seems like I'm doing everything and you hardly ever help at home. And because if you know, if you're on my email list, you know, I just sent something about self-discovery. And one of the assessments I recommended was the DISC assessment. And when both of us took that assessment, I learned that he is very much action oriented, get things done, boom, boom, bam. That's my husband. I'm more of an experience type of person. I want everybody to have a good experience. I'm more emotional. So when I told him that, I said, I feel taken advantage of. I feel overwhelmed. I feel stressed out. I'm just so tired. I'm exhausted. And he said, I never thought about that. He said, I just saw you getting things done. So I was like, okay, she's good. And that's why it's important to know your personalities, because when I know that about him, when he says, oh, I saw you doing things and getting things done, I thought you were fine. That made sense to me. But again, me explaining to him how it felt, he said, oh my goodness, I didn't know that. I will help more now when I'm at home. And he began to do that because he then knew, okay, yes, she's getting it done, but she's overwhelmed. She's frustrated while she's doing it. And I don't want her to feel that way. So be open and honest when you're sharing about your boundaries. And then be firm. As I talked about earlier with my youngest, be firm when you're enforcing those boundaries. Don't say, well, okay, I'll give in this time. Okay, I'll give in. How many of y'all know? And I know y'all know, if you haven't experienced it, it will happen. If your child asks you for something and you say no, 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 that one time you say yes, they're going to be like, yes, got her. So I know I can wear her down. So you want to make sure. And I'm laughing because, oh, man, I have to tell my children, no means no. It does not mean maybe. Even y'all, and I don't know if y'all kids are like this. It is so funny. If I say we will see, they are happy. They're happy because that's how much I have enforced. If I say no, it's no. But if I say we will see, they know that's actually a possibility. They're like, yes, she said we will see. So be firm. Be firm when you explain your boundaries. Be firm and consistent when you enforce those boundaries. So don't be, even if you're scared, even if you're shaking on the inside, you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm saying this to, my boss or my clients or my kids or my husband or whomever, or my mom, my mother-in-law. Again, there's boundaries you need to set, whoever it's with or with yourself. And you're saying, oh my gosh, I'm so scared. Be firm, and be direct. Okay? It's very important. And then, as I talked about, be consistent. Be consistent when you set those boundaries. Even if you're like, oh God, I'm tired of saying this, I might as well just go ahead. No, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't give in just because you're tired of saying no. Continue to enforce it. And sometimes when I'm reinforcing those boundaries, I again tell my children how I feel. No, mommy's working right now. It frustrates me when you're bothering me when I'm working. Then I have to try to refocus. Go play. Go do whatever you're supposed to do because mommy is working right now. Or mommy is cooking right now. Whatever that boundary is. Set it. Be consistent. Do not say yes sometimes and no sometimes. That's not a consistent boundary. That's not a healthy boundary. So if you're listening to me, you're thinking, well, I've set boundaries and you knew that's what you were doing. It's time for you to say, okay, I'm going to start being consistent. I'm going to start saying no. My no will mean no. My no will not sometimes be no. It will not be a no like this. It will be a no. Y'all know the mommy voice. Y'all heard the difference in my voice. Y'all heard the difference when I said, no, mommy's working right now versus, guys, y'all know I'm working. Well, big difference. Y'all know the difference. And if you don't, practice it. Practice it. And this is even when if you need to sit down and have a family meeting to discuss your boundaries or whatever, and you need to practice it. Practice what you're going to say. Write it down. Read it out loud. Practice it. And if you need to have that piece of paper with you when you have that discussion about setting boundaries, then have it with you and read off of it. Do whatever you need to do to clearly communicate the way that you want to be treated, the guidelines and the limits that you need to put on your life. So, just to recap, remember boundaries are not mean. Boundaries are showing others how to treat you as well as showing yourself how you should be treated. So, they're not mean unless you discuss them or unless you say in a mean way how you want them to be enforced. They're not selfish. You are creating healthy relationships with yourself as well as others. You're saying, okay, I don't have the capacity for all the things. I need limits. And these are my guidelines on how I would like them to be played out or enforced in my life. And remember, there's different types of boundaries. There's physical boundaries. Sometimes you're like, I don't want to be touched like that, or I don't want to be that close to people. There's different types of physical boundaries. There's even material boundaries. You know how somebody will borrow your stuff and keep it forever? Okay, yes, you can borrow it, but I need it back in 2 days. Okay. Or financial, how much am I going to spend per month? Or yes, I will let you borrow this amount, but I need it back by this time. Or no, I will not let you borrow money because the last time I let you borrow it, you said you would pay me back. You did not. And then time, every day or each week or bi-monthly, whatever the case may be, I need time for this. I will not. This is when you set with yourself. I will not spend 2 or 3 hours scrolling on. And I'm laughing because sometimes I have to tell myself, get off your phone. I will not spend an hour or two scrolling on TikTok or Facebook or Instagram or whatever it is, or binge watching Netflix, things like that, because that's not a good use of my time. That's not healthy. And then remember, communicate your boundaries clearly and consistently. Don't let your no sometimes be no, sometimes be yes. That's ineffective. So be specific and clear when you communicate those boundaries, and even when you're enforcing them, be consistent. And if you need help, if you need step-by-step guidance to learn how to set boundaries in your life, as I mentioned, I have an online masterclass called Setting Boundaries with Love. And you can grab that by going to www.cicinspireme.com. Well, hopefully this encouraged you to set more, better, and healthy boundaries in your life so you can make room for self-care and self-respect, and so you can just have a healthy mental well-being. Well, thank you guys so much for watching or listening. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure to save this, subscribe, and leave a review. Share this with the mommy you love as well. Until next time, take care. God bless. Thanks so much for joining me for the Mom Self-Care Podcast. I hope you feel inspired to make yourself a priority too. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss a thing. Share this podcast with another mama you love and leave a review. Also, feel free to let me know what you would like to hear about in future episodes by visiting me on Instagram at CICInspireMe. Until next time, take some time to take care of YOU because you matter too.